So again, thanks for joining us. And here's Kelly Lundeen.
Hi. Yeah, like John said, my name is Kelly Lundeen. We're right here in the office of Nukewatch in Northwestern Wisconsin. Lindsay and I, the other staff members of Nukewatch. Welcome. Thank you everybody for being here. I am here to introduce our first speaker. Marion Küpker. Marion is the campaign spokeswoman for Bushel is Everywhere, Nuclear Weapons Free Now. She is the international coordinator of the DFGDK against nuclear weapons and the coordinator of nonviolent action to abolish nuclear weapons. Welcome, Marion, and go ahead.
So here in Germany, we started in 1995, so more than 25 years ago, with our resistance against the US nuclear weapons at the Büchel Air Base in central Western Germany. And we are 77 organizations, and Nukewatch is actually our US organization who is part of this united campaign we're having in Germany. And it's about to withdraw the remaining old B-61 nuclear bombs. They're about 20, and not to upgrade them with new ones. That's what we found out about 2009, that there were plans, and NATO decided in 2011 with our government, they're gonna bring the B-61-12 there in soon. And also to sign the TPNW. We want our government to sign it. Here in Germany, we have this nuclear sharing agreement, which means that, German pilots actually gonna be the one who would fly the US nuclear bombs if they get the order through NATO or by the US president. And this nuclear sharing agreement in NATO also exists in the Netherlands, Belgium, Italy, and Turkey. By Turkey, it's now a little bit different. Yeah, so this is the basics. So that means since 1996, we had our first civil disobedience action, and we also had and it was always our plan to bring complaints to the Constitutional Court, so to go through the court, because these weapons are illegal and nuclear sharing is illegal under different treaties, and we thought we might win such a case. But the Constitutional Court, they never picked up the issue. We have already now 17 complaints, and so since we were not successful, we ended our actions in 2004, but we continued again when we thought, and that's where Nukewatch got into it, in 2017, when we were thinking of, we want to bring these trials to the European Court on Human Rights, which means when all our trials don't have success in Germany, that would be the next highest court we can complain about, that we are not being heard. So that's what we are doing right now. Since 2017, we had different international camps and quite a few US delegations, which John LaForge also organized with us. And yeah, and I just want to say that for our German-wide campaign, the civil disobedience is just, the groups are responsible for it, but the campaign is also doing a lot of lobby work. So just that you get an impression, we are having now 137 cities who signed the city appeal. That means 30% of the population, they don't are covered by it, that these cities want our government to sign the TPNW. So we have 837 mayors for peace. So that means after Hiroshima and Iran, we are on place 3 worldwide. We have the most mayors. And even we are on place one with our 650 parliamentarians who want our government to sign the TPNT, but yeah, nothing has happened in this case. So I keep it short. Yeah, I think no, one thing I forgot, I should say. They have been so far 17 times that people went into jail, into prison. And John is gonna, but some were twice or even 3 times in prison, refusing to pay. And John is gonna be the 13th person who will go. And Kelly wanted to put the names in it who has been all in, because I think it's important to name them. It doesn't happen so often.
Okay, so Gerd will be up next. I just put in the chat the names of, yeah, John is the 13th person going in the jail, and it's been a long campaign. So now, thank you, Marion. I'll introduce Gerd. Gerd Büntzly, born in 1949. Gerd has a Master of Arts in French and Spanish language and literature. As a musician and peace activist, he is in the organization Lebenslaute, a classical orchestra and choir that combines a 100% concert with civil disobedience every year. Welcome, Gerd.
Yeah, hello. I'll try
Says hi to
with the telephone because the other way does not function. I've been in prison for 4 times now because of entering military sites. At the beginning only for a few days, then I increased up to 19 days. That's not very much. That was my own choice, my strategy in order to get most publicity. I live in a town of 60,000 inhabitants, and there are 2 newspapers. Both wrote very friendly about my case, and they understood the signal I wanted to send, the sign. Now I'm very well known in my town. Often people say hello and tell me, "Oh, you are not in prison." People often think that prison means being absent for a long time, but that is not the case necessarily. Well, I want to describe a little bit the situation in German prisons, so that you have an impression in the USA. In the closed cell, you are locked in for 23 hours a day, but you can come into contact with other prisoners when you walk around the yard. In my case, there was a very large yard. The prisoners immediately begin to talk in their mother language to each other, and thus form the respective groups: Russian, Arabic, Romani, that is Gypsy, and German, of course. The atmosphere is generally friendly. They only lock people together who have similar sentences to serve. So I got in contact with people who were imprisoned for driving without a license, drug possession, small frauds. When you present yourself at the gate of the prison, you go to an examination period for a few days. There are about 20 rooms, each with 2 double bunk beds along a T-shaped corridor. Both times I had a bed on the floor level, which I preferred onto the top because I wake up several times during the night and have to go to the toilet. The toilet was very stinky. The shower room ancient, it could have some renovation. There was a cleaning service once a day, so the pollution was kept within limits. The staff usually is not present. They communicate via loudspeakers, and there are constantly announcements. In the morning, they ask people for work, for sports, or for the doctor, or for changing of clothes, or for going in the yard. You never feel alone. By the way, prisoners don't get a number. They are addressed with their real name, and even are addressed as Herr or Frau, that means Mr. or Mrs. well, Mrs. I did not, women I did not see. But there are no cameras. At least I did not see one. One day I offered a yoga course in the corridor, and there were 3 or 4 people who dared to attend and 14 watching. The food is okay. You can even choose if you want vegetarian, halal, kosher food, or if you have problems with certain things. I guess they have a computer system for the orders. During my last and longest stay, I was quarantined for 14 days because of Corona. Though in the rest of Germany there were almost no more restrictions, and I was not given any of the things I had brought with me. Neither could I wear my own clothes. Don't ask me for the reason. They don't have a prison uniform, but blue and gray sweatshirts, t-shirts, and trousers or jeans. At least I was given a pen and paper after a time, and so I could write letters or diary. But otherwise I had to be with myself or with a TV set, which was connected by a friendly official without waiting for my consent, saying, "You need TV, you can't stand without it." By the way, I didn't have to pay anything for it. I did meditation 2 times a day and yoga likewise, so I did not suffer bodily problems when I came out. The mail I got was also helpful, and then the daily newspaper that I had ordered. Curiously, however, the weekend editions, which are rather entertaining, were not handed over to me. There came many cards and letters because I had asked many people to write me. So I felt comforted with the solidarity of my friends. You have to make a written request for everything, and you get the forms for it in your cell. For example, I had to request anew every day that the letters I sent be stamped. I had brought quite a lot of stamps with me, but they were not given to me because of the quarantine. Once I was sent to an old people's home, a former clinic with a park. There were no bars there at the windows. You could forget that you were in prison. Moreover, it was summer, and the church people had opened a cafe in an adjoining building where you could get coffee and cake for little money. You could stay almost the whole day in fresh air. Being locked up there is like a vacation. I also had access to the library and found quite nice books. And I invited a member of parliament to see me in prison, and she came. At the end, when you are released, they tell you, all the best, and don't come back. But I cannot promise that with the political developments we have. That's what I wanted to tell you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerd. We heard all of your presentation, even though it was over the phone. Thank you. It was very funny too. And good to get a heads up on what John will be preparing for. Frits, it's great to see you. Frits Ter Kuile. Frits is a longtime peace activist and Catholic worker in Amsterdam. He served a 30-day sentence for his actions opposing US nukes in Germany this past July. Welcome, Frits, and go ahead.
Hello, hello. Well, I think John might prove his German because there's a lot of German in prison. So I'm thrilled to talk German with John when he gets out, and we have another party. So and before, well, prison, you know, we all know prison, I think. But Marion mentioned the campaign, and this year in August, we'll have a week at our Volkel Air Force Base, and you're all very invited. We'll do a blockade on Hiroshima Day and a pink shovel tunneling action on Nagasaki Day. And we have some pigsty stalls that have been converted for groups, so there's real beds. Susan Crane, she was there when we visited the place, so she might confirm later that it's a real super setup, even with a hot tub. So come and join us this year for some action at Volkel Air Base, and then you might get into a Dutch prison, but that's pretty hard. That's pretty hard. The Dutch are not really into it. And And can I say a little can I make a little detour on resistance in Europe? Yeah, so Susan Crane was a couple of times. We go from Amsterdam, from our Catholic worker house, to the trials and to the peace camps at Bugel Air Force Base and at Cochem, and then we stop at the Lützerath Peace Camp, climate camp, and it's on the edge of a Grand Canyon where they do coal mining, and all the trees have tree huts, and Susan Crane has been freezing over there. And next week, the police will evict it. And they've now started making a police camp, a sort of military style next to it to do the eviction. And so there's already hundreds of police. But next week, Saturday, there will be a demonstration. And the last demonstration at the previous climate camp, there were over 50,000 people. And it stopped the eviction. And not only the demonstration, but also somebody fell from a tree hut. All the trees have huts, and he died. And that really put a brake on things. And I hope next Saturday, nobody will fall out of tree houses, but we will be 100,000 people, and we'll offer the police that they can go home because they are also concerned about the climate. And we will keep Lützerath, this little village at the edge. So next Saturday, pray for a lot of climate activists trying to convert the police into good stuff. And then also people will go to prison. Germans are a bit more eager in putting people to prison. So I think, you know, prison is hard, especially the first week. And the last days, the time also slows down. And I hope Marion can organize a parliamentarian to visit John, and then he can get off a little bit, and they can cuddle up, and then John will go back and finish his time. I think it will work. I think Marion might need more support even than John, and I hope the Hamburgers can. She has a good support network in Hamburg around her. So that would be my input. Hope to see you all in August at the Volkel Air Base.
Left.
He would still have 5 minutes.
Frits, if you have any other stories, you still have a few more minutes if there's anything else. Otherwise, we can move on to our next presenter.
Well, I made a paper with practical details for the letzte generation people who are now entering the prisons, and I will send it right almost now. When you mute me, I will send it to John with a lot of practical stuff. Same things Gerd also said, and other things. And I think some practicalities are good to have. Yeah. But I might say, oh, later in the conversation, all of a sudden I think, oh, I could contribute this or that. But at the moment, I'm quite content to listen and listen and be there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Frits. Our next speaker is Susan Crane. Susan Crane is a Catholic worker currently living in Redwood City, California, who's participated in several plowshares actions to symbolically turn swords into plowshares. Resisting war making has landed her in jails and prisons for about 6 years of her life. After trials for go-ins at the Bushel Air Base in Germany, where US nuclear warheads are deployed, she has been sentenced to 230 daily rates, and maybe she can explain what that means too. Welcome, Susan.
Hi. We all know that the United States has these nuclear weapons that terrorize people around the world, and they're flying ovens. And I know we know this, but I mention it because it's just so important for me to remember this. It's easy to forget. It's easy to go about my daily life of feeding people, helping the poor, helping the people who are flooded out of their stream beds where they're living, and forget that these weapons are always present and always threatening us. They're irrational, suicidal. and they're a theft from the poor that I work with every day. So I've been part of these Plowshares actions to make clear the need to disarm the weapons and convert them and our hearts towards peacemaking. And consequently, as you mentioned, I've been in jails and prisons here in the United States for about 6 years. And these actions, these Plowshares actions were done in community. And I'm very thankful for that community of people who gathered in support and doing the actions. And it's the same at Buchel. I'm very thankful for the people who gathered at the international camp that Marion and John and others put together and did support for our actions and did actions with us. It's a joy and it's very giving to do actions. But the actions are only one part of the protest. Going to court, speaking from our hearts in the courtroom, taking responsibility for the actions and accepting the consequences are all part of the action. And I think it's pretty clear that no one wants to go to prison. But we have a responsibility and a duty to speak out about these weapons nonviolently. So I found the process of going to prison strips you of everything. It strips you of your clothes. It strips you of your position in life, your class status, your clothing, your day-to-day chores, and your family. You're told what to wear, where to go, where to sleep, when to eat, when not to eat, what you're going to do. And a lot of decision-making is taken from you. This is in the United States, at least. You're treated as the worst of the worst. You're treated as throwaway garbage. You have a number, which is more important than your name, and your life is not worth much. Your health and your needs are neglected, and your dignity is worth nothing. And it was very hard to see women around me suffering from toothaches, from health problems. Women would be sick, and the docs would do nothing. Then we'd hear they'd be in the hospital and they die. That was healthcare in the federal system. They miss their children. Their sentences are so long, they're a childhood. So they miss their children growing up. They miss the death of their family members, the marriages that happen. It's just a terrible system. And it was hard to hear their stories of racism and injustice when they were working in the court system. And, just 2% of prisoners in the federal system have gone to trial. The rest just take a plea bargain. So the warden and the several high staff members of the federal prison where I was were recently charged with sexual abuse. And the warden was convicted just in December of sexual abuse, 6 counts of sexual abuse and 1 count of lying to the FBI. And all the staff members who complained about this abuse were transferred to other prisons. But despite these conditions, these terrible conditions in the prison, there were things that we had control over. We had control over our conscience, our dignity, and our ability to choose how we're going to act and who we're going to be kind to. And we got to choose how much we were going to cooperate with the powers and principalities in the prison. In every facility where I was held, I was unexpectedly helped by the kindness of other women prisoners. It's overwhelming, the goodness of the women in the prisons. Despite the systematic oppression in the prison, and it still brings tears to my eyes when I think of how kind they were to me. Just for one example, I had been told to clean up the floor in the main room of our unit, and I slipped. There was some water on the floor and I slipped and I hurt my foot, and I couldn't climb up to the top bunk I had been assigned. And two women from down the hall came up to me and said, "We have a bottom bunk, and you want to move to our cell?" And I said, "Sure, I'd like to, but the counselor won't talk to me. She's not going to move me anywhere." And they said, "We'll take care of that." And sure enough, I got moved. These were two African-American women, and I stayed in their cell the whole time I was there, and they were very, very, very kind to me in many ways that too innumerable to mention. In the prison, everyone has a job, and I could teach GED classes, high school classes. I could teach English as a second language. I taught pottery for a while. I worked in the kitchen. I did other jobs. I tried to do jobs that would help the other prisoners to be a servant to them. And I refused jobs in the prison that would build the prison or were for outside government contracts. One difficulty I had was about dealing with the guards who were petty and tried to harass me and the other women. And I remembered, I tried to focus and remember the Zimbardo Stanford prison experience and how the inhuman power structure of the prison fostered a mean attitude in just anyone who works there. And I tried to see the goodness behind their meanness. And some of the guards actually were compassionate. Some of them broke many, many rules to help prisoners and help me at times when I needed some help. And from that kindness of those guards, I made a decision that I'll never let the clothing I'm wearing or a uniform that I have, a position that I have, let me not help a brother or sister in need. So no matter what the rules are of anywhere where I am, if there's someone in need, I hope that I help them. Many of the guards in the federal system of the prison had been in the military, and they were working in the prisons just to get their 20 years so they could retire. And a lot of them felt that the wars they had been in didn't make any sense. And they looked to me to get another idea of how things could be resolved. And the conversations I had were very interesting. And I learned a lot from that. I learned that it's really important not to try to win an argument, but to listen and to find where you agree with someone and where you disagree. It was an interesting challenge. Along with other political prisoners, we had a chance to bring dignity to the prison because we weren't embarrassed. I wasn't embarrassed to be in prison. And so we treated the other prisoners with great respect and dignity. And I think that was a good thing. It was very hard to leave the women when I left. I had been there for an eye blink, and they are there for 20 years, 10 years, 40 years. And when I talked about our action, to the guards and to the prisoners, I talked about three things. I talked about how the nuclear weapons in this country, we use over half of our federal expenditures on war making, one kind or another. And there's not enough money left for schools and social services and rehab programs and roads and all those other things. All the women in the prison agreed with me on that. They experienced that. So then I said, my faith teaches me we need to love one another and not kill each other. Well, that's pretty straightforward. They understood that. And then I talked about how the nuclear weapons were illegal. And even in war, we have rules and we've made agreements that we don't indiscriminately kill people. And these nuclear weapons indiscriminately kill whole cities of people. So I found the people I talked to pretty much agreed or understood what I was talking about. And that goodness and kindness and understanding that I met there in the prison gave me great hope about human nature. So, I wish the best for John. I know that John, your humor and your just the way you are is going to do quite well for you, and you'll make good use of your time in prison. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for your personal reflections. I think it's really important for all of us to hear that, especially many of us haven't been to jail or prison and seen what can happen there. So thank you. So John LaForge is our next speaker. John is a longtime co-editor of Nukewatch, Nuclear Watchdog and Environmental Justice Group in Wisconsin, and co-editor of the Nukewatch quarterly newsletter and a regular contributor to counterpunch.org. Okay, take it away, John.
Thank you, Kelly. Am I off of mute again? I want to say that in our civil resistance actions, we never advocate evading or defying the law. Our go-in actions at Bushel Air Base and at the other nuclear weapons sites we've been to are based on international legal obligations, which in the words of the Nuremberg Principles, quote, bind every citizen just as does ordinary municipal law. The US and German Air Force at the Bushel Air Base prepare for nuclear attacks day in and day out. This preparation is inherent in the so-called nuclear sharing policy. That's the name that the civilian authorities give to this policy of delivering nuclear weapons here to Germany. They plan and prepare this nuclear weapons attack system in ways that are prohibited, clearly prohibited, and which have been criminalized by the combined obligations written and considered as a whole and set out in the United Nations Charter, the Geneva Conventions, the Hague Conventions, the Nuremberg Charter, Principles and Judgment, the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, and in US and German constitutional law. So as we have argued before juries and judges again and again for over 40 years now in the life of Nukewatch, any nonviolent action against these preparations to commit mass destruction with nuclear weapons is honorable. An upsurge of such actions would be in the public interest. Our so-called trespassing was and is an attempt at crime prevention. Our interference, you might say, with ongoing criminal activity by the government. As such, our actions were a civic duty. This is what we argue again and again before the judges and the courts and the juries. The world is coming to recognize nowadays that the threatened use of nuclear weapons, what the state and the commercial media calls credible nuclear deterrence, is a joint plan to commit indiscriminate, uncontrollable mass destruction using firestorms and radiation. No criminal conspiracy of any kind anywhere compares to this level of deliberate public law-breaking inherent in nuclear weapons threats. Rather than a trespass, our peaceful interference with nuclear attack machinery is justifiable, preventative, precautionary, and lawful. Court systems in Germany and in the US have worked overtime to dismiss this lawful defense and to ignore their own constitutional obligations to abide by international treaties. Both the US Constitution and the German Basic Law, which is the equivalent here, as all of our listeners probably well know, elevate treaty law to a position superior to all federal and state law. In the US Constitution, it's called treaties are called the supreme law of the land. So when courts in both of these countries have been confronted with treaty obligations outlined above, as I said earlier, they have routinely denied that the treaties are applicable in protest cases involving nuclear weapons. The courts have routinely pretended as if treaty laws limiting the nature of war, forbidding mass destruction, forbidding attacks on civilians, forbidding the use of weapons that do long-term damage to the environment, prohibiting weapons whose effects cross international borders into neutral states. They pretend that these treaties don't apply in federal courts. And oftentimes they get away with it, but a couple times, in fact, twice in Nukewatch's decades-long work to bring these cases to a jury, judges have allowed the defense to be presented, our defense of justification, defense of necessity. In 1996, there was a county court jury in Wisconsin that found Tom Hastings and Donna Howard not guilty of sabotage. The jury was convinced after hearing the expert witnesses that no interference with the national defense had taken place because the Trident missile submarine system is strictly an offensive weapon. Again, in 2004, a Minneapolis jury found 4 of us not guilty of trespass after they agreed with our argument that the production of uranium weapons going on there in Minneapolis suburbs violated the Nuremberg Principle prohibition against planning and preparing unlawful warfare using poison weapons. These breakthrough verdicts, 25 years apart, are all bellwethers that should encourage and strengthen our resistance. At the same time, we know that confronting government wrongdoing involves the risk of government overreaction, the risk of going to jail and prison. Our US civil rights movement, some history teaches us that defying unjust courts and court systems sometimes means enduring their overreactions, including jail. But by using this nonviolent resistance, we confront the wrongdoing in the public arena. We win the chance to challenge bad rulings and unlawful government conduct in the appeals courts. And we encourage other people to strengthen and enlarge the movement by having an occasional success like that. It was Albert Einstein, I think, who said, you might be mentally ill if you keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. So how many times, Susan, and how many times of the people on this phone call today have gone and made these arguments in court and lost? But we have to hold up these triumphs, these jury acquittals, as a sign of a way to move forward and to convince the greater community that these weapons aren't lawful. Our actions to interfere with their threatened use are preventative actions of a civic nature. Well, I, like Susan, have spent many, many months in US jails and prisons, so I feel I have a pretty good understanding of what to expect. I deeply appreciate that so many people joined our call today to hear about the events here in Germany, and we have plenty of time. I think we can go till 12:15 after the hour for some questions if people would like to ask some questions. Thanks again for everybody who joined here.
Thank you, John. So we're going to move into our question and answer session. So if you would like to ask a question, you can write it in the chat. I have a few already that I've been compiling from the chat. Before, John, did you want to do the announcements at the after the question and answer, or should we do that now in case some people have to drop off the call?
Oh yeah, maybe we should do some now.
Okay, so after we do a few announcements and actions you can be a part of, then you can start raising your hand. Preferably do raise your hand in using the Zoom function so that I don't lose you, or in case I don't see you raising your hand for a question. So we'll do that after we hear these couple of announcements of what you can do. I'll just explain this one. This is the ad for the upcoming Nuclear Ban Treaty Collaborative organizing Zoom for next Tuesday that you can join, and that is explained more on the next page. Okay, go ahead, John.
Yes, this is just wonderful news. A second anniversary of the entry into force of the new treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons is taking place January 22nd. So we encourage you all to find a group that's celebrating this terrific new treaty and demonstrating in support of it, and helping demand that countries that haven't yet signed or ratified it sign on to this event, sign on to the treaty. Of course, the United States is leading the opposition to this treaty and needs to be shamed more than anybody else in the effort. There's an address there for anybody who'd like to write me or send a postcard. One thing to remember about jail and prison inmates is that their colors of the world have been taken away, and everything's either beige or green or brown. So send a colorful picture to your favorite inmate sometime on a postcard. Have you got another sign, Kelly, or is
Nope.
this?
Nope, that's it.
All right, one other anniversary that's coming up, not a happy one. February 24th will be the first anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So your local anti-war groups, I suppose, are going to be taking note of that. One thing to recall for everyone is that the NATO policy of first use of nuclear weapons is identical to anything that President Vladimir Putin's been accused of. And the US nuclear weapons in Europe are pointing right up the nose of the Russian Federation. And one thing that our friend Oscar Arias has proposed, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, is that the US or NATO offering to withdraw these nuclear weapons would be a gesture of de-escalation that might lead to some chance of ceasefire and peace negotiations getting underway.
Okay, thank you. And just to follow up on the mailing, John, if you've missed his address in the chat, I can put it in there one more time. Or John, could you put it in there one more time?
Sure.
And also just an added reminder is that it takes, if you're writing from the United States, it takes 2 weeks for mail to arrive in Germany. So you can start writing him now. And he will be there through March 1st. So probably if you're going to send anything, send it by about middle of February. And we also had a very important announcement that you should know. Well, John will need to know that right from Ralph Hutchinson, you're not allowed to take the cornet into jail there because it would violate the rights of other inmates. The Geneva Conventions prohibit torture. So just a little reminder for you there, John, from Ralph.
Thanks for that reminder, Ralph. It's very important.
Okay. Okay, and then I have a few questions here. I'll start with Marion, who has your hand up. Go ahead.
Okay, I don't have a question, but I forgot one information which fits here quite well. For this weekend, there are about 20 people coming to Hamburg, and we all gather. These are all people who did also actions in Bücher and in different go-in groups. And we have a strategy meeting to discuss how we continue with this, that the Constitutional Court is not picking up our case. So we are thinking about how we, for example, what we could do on the higher courts in Karlsruhe and Strasbourg. These are the main cities. That's one thing. And these people, they stay till Tuesday when John has to go to prison. So we're going to bring him there and going to be with him till the gate, and also having a vigil in front of the prison.
Great, thank you. Somebody asked about sending mail in Germany. We don't know of any other restrictions for mail, or there shouldn't be any other restrictions as far as what you're able to send to John. Does anybody want to add to that? You should be able to write in English, and different sizes of packages or letters. Packages. Anyone know anything about packages?
You don't get it in.
Oh, no packages. Okay.
No,
Just
and it
letters.
needs, and books, they need to come straight from the printer, from the publisher, and you're not allowed to bring in books or send books from as a private person. At least that was my prison.
Mhm.
And if you send a lot of paper in one go, they also make trouble with it. But the letter is fine.
Okay, thank you.
And and John, postcards with toothpaste, you stick them on the cell wall, and they mumble a bit. But if you have your humor and your smile, I think you can tapestry your whole cell with postcards. Yeah.
Okay. There's a question from Kara Bissell, and I can't see the whole name. It says, is the last appeal mentioned in the last nuclear resistor been decided? I don't understand the question. Is there somebody who knows the answer to that question?
Yes, those appeals have not been decided.
Oh.
We're still waiting on the Constitutional Court in my case. And in Marion and Stephanie's case, we're still waiting to hear from the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg.
Okay, yes, so that was about John's case. Okay. If that didn't answer your question, Kara, just repost it. Some people have asked in the chat if you will have access to this. We are recording it, so there'll be a YouTube link that I'll be sending out in the next few days. So somebody had asked to use it for an event, and so you would be able to use the YouTube video. Okay, other than that, we have, somebody asked earlier, what party is the Bundestag member from? So I'm thinking Marion might be a good person to answer that question in a brief way that would be understandable by a US audience.
What parliamentarian? Oh, what was the question again?
What party was the Bundestag member from?
Which ones? They are going to
okay.
visit John, or?
Or the one who visited Gerd.
Oh, right. I guess I don't know who was speaking when that question came up.
Or the ones who signed the parliamentarian appeal? I don't know.
No, the one who visited Gerd.
Okay, Gerd, are you still there to answer that question?
I can answer in terms of Holger Isabel, who was last summer in the same prison where John is now, and for the same reason, actually. He's from here, from Hamburg, and he had two people from the left party who visited him. And normally the prison, parliamentarians have a right to go into prison. And so, but the prison normally they don't want this, so they allow the prisoner to leave the prison for a day or sometimes even for a weekend. Well, that's interesting. And
Gerd is trying to answer, but it looks like his phone isn't coming through. Do you see his picture there? He's trying to answer.
I'm trying to unmute him, but I can't do it from here.
yeah. Another thing what's very interesting is that every prisoner has a phone in the cell, and they're gonna have an account. There has to be there's a prepaid system over a bank account, so then he can call out. It depends on how much money he has because it costs something, but this call out will be only in Germany. It won't go to the US.
Okay, Michael Goodman asks, how long is the sentence? John?
Oh, it's 50 days, January 10th to March 1st.
If you have posted a question in the chat and I have missed it, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll call on you. Anybody else? Feel free to just ask questions now.
Casey raises her hand. Casey Boylan.
Okay, go ahead, Kathy.
Well, Mike Wally and Kathy Boylan from Dorothy Day House in Washington, D.C., you're all invited to come and visit. And John can bring his trumpet here anytime, all right?
Thank you.
So thank you, Fisher. Thank you, John. Thank you, John, and Marion, and everyone else for your great generosity for humanity. I wrote down, John already answered and spoke about nuclear weapons threatening Russia, but I find that in the United States, very few people are mentioning that the United States has stationed their nuclear weapons in Turkey, Italy, Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands, and I think that's very important, but I don't hear the dominant peace voices in the United States saying that. Thank God for Bruce Gagnon and John and Marion and all of you. I'm sure you're mentioning that. But anyway, mostly we love you. And on your way back, if you all come from Germany with John, come and stay here. Thank you. Love you. Bye.
Thank you, Kathy. Just got a question from Jack Payden Travers. What sentence is Susan Crane facing if she refuses to pay the fine?
Well, they gave me 230 Tiger sites, which is, if I don't pay the fine, that's 230 days in prison, and that's 7.66 months.
May I reply to that? There's just a very interesting development because the German law wants to change and they decided to do it. It just won't work for John, but very soon 2 daily rates gonna be minimized to half. So if you have to go to prison, you're gonna have half the time.
That'll be fine if it happens.
Marion, could you share with everybody, somebody asked if there's a peace camp this summer. What could people participate in if they wanted to?
I have to say that the situation changed since we had Corona, and the authorities near the base, they made clear that we won't have a campsite there anymore. And with our campaign and also with our strategy, trial strategy groups, we haven't met so far. So we're gonna have this meeting this weekend, and then next month we're gonna have a 2 days meeting where we set up clear program how we want to go on with our campaign. So I can't tell you exactly what's gonna happen by now, but I'm gonna keep you updated after that. That's for sure. But for sure, there are some people who are still going to the base, who are having vigils and so on, and even some blockades. Right now, the situation is that the base is being under construction for the next 3 to 4 years. It's gonna cost us 259 million euro for replacing or prolong the runway and making new shelters. The thing is that the B-6112, the new bombs, they shall go onto the base and they need a different infrastructure. And then also the tornado jets, the German ones, not only that they are old and not needed, but the new German government, which is, we call them Ampel coalition, with the Green Party, and 3 parties are together, the Liberals and the Socialist or Democratic Party, how you call them. They just decided to buy 35 F-35 stealth bombers from the United States as nuclear weapons carrier. So, and for working for the infrastructure on the space and Büchel, the pilots who fly these tornadoes, these nuclear tornadoes, they are actually now deployed or stationed on another base about 100 miles away, closer to Cologne. And from there, they take part in the exercise with other NATO countries. And they plan coming back when the new bombs are in Büchel. And that's why also groups who do action, especially in June and July and half of August, the first half, they are thinking, haven't totally decided, do they do it at the other base in Nörvenich or in Büchel? While we are also thinking it's very important to do it in Büchel because the infrastructure is necessary to make it possible to deploy nuclear weapons. So to stop this infrastructure being set up is also working against nuclear weapons. That's what we believe. So far I can tell you. And we have a website and can write in the chat, and on this website it's in German, but there's also a calendar, and calendar in Germany is written with a K instead of a C. And there are all the groups who already at least decided they're gonna come next or this summer. You find them the dates, and it's gonna be updated more and more during the spring.
Thank you, Marion. Frits, would you like to share something?
Yeah, so we hope that this year, August, the peace camp that's traditionally around Büchel Air Base everybody will come to Volkel, to our air base, and help us here. So again, very heartily welcome. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. I don't see any other questions right now. I'm wondering if our presenters have any last words. I don't know if Gerd is able to join us again with your audio, or Frits, did you have anything to add?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I could, but it's again a little bit off topic, but into the resistance. So in Bavaria, climate activists, they include themselves on the runways to say, people, let's fly less. And they got 28 days in jail. So not trial, but just in U-Haft. And then halfway through, after 14 days, the Bavarian Minister of the Interior thought, oh, this is not working. So he ordered the police to get them out. There were 17 in the prison. And they came in the evening, the police, and they all said, no, we'll sleep overnight. Tomorrow we'll leave. And in the meantime, somebody said 61, and Holger Isabel, who does a lot of juridical stuff for all of us, he said over 500 people stepped up to do the same actions. And so instead of a deterrent, 1 month in jail, it was a solidarity attraction. And now the Bavarian Interior Police and Ministry, they try not to arrest people. So I think that's such wonderful news. And we try to share our prison experience with the climate movement. And at the Vocal Peace Camp, we also focus on the exhaust of the armed forces, which is about 6% of global exhaust. So to synthesize climate and peace movement together. And I think that's a real beautiful challenge.
Fritz, someone asked if you could post that one again too. I think, Martha, were you asking about an action in Amsterdam?
No, I actually, because I got on late, I assumed that Fritz had had an opportunity to post what he just said, where people can find out more about how to reach that information, if that makes sense.
It would be wonderful, but I use my phone, and then I have to post the poster that hangs in the auditorium at the New York Catholic Worker in this Zoom call, and that's really, whoa, I'm better in mowing a lawn than doing that.
Where do we find that information, especially about the climate part?
About it's on the poster. I could send it to John, the poster, and then John can send it to everybody who's in this meeting by mail. How's that?
John, do you have time? That would be great. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we can do that.
Oh, Kelly. Yeah.
That would be the same as sending it to Kelly, right?
Sure.
Right, sure.
Yeah, but then I'd have to find Kelly's mail address, and that's
It's Nukewatch. It's the same.
I'll just
okay.
put our email in the chat.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and there's a question about John's health. John, do you care to share about?
Oh, sure. Well, I didn't see the question, but.
Just Susu Jeffrey asked, how's your health?
Oh, thanks, Susu. Yeah, about 3 years ago, people might know that I had a little cancer scare with a tumor on my tonsil, and that was removed surgically, and I changed my diet, and I did a lot of mega doses of vitamin C, which kills cancer cells, and been cancer-free ever since March of 2020. So thanks for asking. We vanquished that cancer by doing all the right things, avoiding x-rays, avoiding CAT scans, avoiding PET scans. I could get on a soapbox, but I'll avoid that.
Susan, is there anything else, any last words you'd like to share?
A big thank you to you and Lindsay for organizing this and for everyone who came. It's really good to look over the list of people here and see your names and see faces of people I've worked with before and who've supported many actions and been part of them. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Mary, do you want to say anything else?
Yes, thank you. I was wondering what could be done in the US somehow to influence a little bit, bring attention to the B6112, which is being built in basically Kansas City, but also Tennessee is involved around Ralph Hutchin. And some places, I don't know what possibilities you have, but I think it's important that also your governments know and bomb makers that in Europe actually, or especially in Germany also, we don't want to have these bombs. Yes, thank you.
John, do you want to add anything?
Oh, just to say hello again to everybody who joined. So many old friends on this phone call and new friends too, and colleagues from all over. It's great to see all these friendly faces. Special shout out to my junior high school trombone playing concert band friend, Chris Remick, who I haven't seen in a live picture for 35 years, I'm quite sure. And thanks for everyone else for joining us tonight. And keep up the good struggle out there where you are.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Like I said, I'll be sending out a video with a link with the video and other links that have come up or things of interest. So it's been a wonderful meeting with all of you. Thank you for joining us, supporting John, and continuing the struggle, because this is all of our work. So thank you.
Peace and love, John.
Yay!
Thanks, Angela.
Go, John.
Yes.
Hi.
We'll send our postcards.
Okay.